Hey everyone, we're here with Nate Hilgenkamp from Harris Creek Baptist Church in Waco, and we're just going to start off our interview by having him introduce himself. So do you want to talk a little bit about yourself, what you do, some of your hobbies?
Yeah, so my name's Nate Hilgenkamp. I am the college pastor at Harris Creek Baptist Church, down in the best college town in the United States of America, Waco, Texas.
That's
Um, yeah, Waco is the place to be right now. It's getting cooler every single day. People are moving here from California. I mean, this is the place to be. So I went to Baylor as an undergrad, went to Baylor's seminary as well, and came on staff at Harris Creek in 2016. So I've been on staff now for 4.5 years doing college ministry here. It's just been a blast to see our church grow. And this last year and a half specifically, because we've got a somewhat new pastor. His name is Jonathan Bakluda, or JP, and he and I have started a podcast called Becoming Something that has just been so fun to be a part of, and it's kind of blown up across the country, all because of his reach, and it's just been fun to get to work with him. Honestly, he's someone who I'd listened to for years and years and years, so now to work with him is just kind of crazy. But it's been a fun ride for this last year and a half or so.
Yeah, Becoming Something is an awesome podcast. And for those of you who might be listening and haven't listened to it, you should definitely go check it out. And JP, Nate, and Kathy Davidson share a lot of wisdom from the Bible. What's your favorite part about podcasting with them?
My favorite part is like we're genuinely friends. So whenever we're hanging out in the podcast studio, it's like we're genuinely just hanging out. It doesn't feel like work at all. Like maybe that's bad to say, but I'm like, I can't believe we're paid to do this because we're just hanging out and talking like your friends would around a bonfire or like around dinner or whatever it is. We're just hanging out and talking. And honestly, I learn so much from the podcast like anyone else would, because JP has basically memorized the whole Bible. So I'll ask him a question and he'll just be quoting First Thessalonians and Isaiah and Psalm and whatever else. And it's like, oh my gosh, like every single week I'm getting a picture of like who I want to be. So one, it's just cool to hang out with friends, and two, it's so it's just like humbling to work with JP, and I get to learn from him every single week. So those are my two favorite things about doing Becoming Something.
Yeah, we actually got to listen to the episode that just came out today. For anyone who like hasn't listened to it yet, it was called "Stewardship is a Lame Word," and we kind of just got to see like firsthand. You're talking about like some of your hobbies of like doing day trading and that kind of thing. You guys got to talk about.
Yeah.
It's really fun to do, and it's definitely something that Mike and I have tried to emulate a little bit, and we look to you guys as an example of a Christian podcast that we want to.
Wait, so you guys emulate my day trading?
No, not your. I wouldn't know anything about your day trading, but just the becoming.
Okay, good. Because I was gonna say on the podcast today, I said buy Tesla. It would really help me out. It'll make me a lot of money, and it went up 9.47% today. I think it's because I mentioned it and people started buying it. Like, I think it's because of me. So Elon Musk owes me for helping his stock price. So anyway.
Big time. Mike and I have dabbled a little bit in the endorsements of different things, and I don't really know how big of an impact we're making, but
Definitely.
But
Awesome.
if you drink coffee, the peppermint mocha Coffee Mate, we recommend it for sure.
I actually don't really like coffee, which I know is crazy, but I know I can only drink like the super girly drinks, like the vanilla lattes and stuff like that. I can't do like the black coffee. So
Black coffee's awful.
No, yeah.
No,
negative.
if you
okay, good. That makes me feel better.
Yeah, iced coffee with vanilla or something in it.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm actually holding a nitro cold brew with some vanilla and sweet cream, so it's not like black coffee like that.
Okay, good. I'm glad that I'm not. You guys still have respect for me, like, because there are some like coffee snobs that are like you only have to drink black, and I don't understand it.
Oh, black coffee is terrible.
Yeah, actually, I went to Waco about a week ago, and I went to like the whole Magnolia thing.
How awesome was it? Were you just like happy the whole time?
Yeah, it was really cool. But they have like a coffee shop there that's like I think pretty famous or well known or whatever. And I got whatever they recommended, and it had an odd taste. I don't know. Maybe there's something wrong with the Waco coffee. That's why you don't like it.
Oh my gosh, was it Common Grounds?
Yes, yes, it was.
Oh, I've been there. That place is pretty good.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's great. But yeah, we only have like 3 coffee shops. So like I don't even know what good coffee is because it's Starbucks, Common Grounds, and like one other one. So I'm sure up in Norman and wherever Georgia Tech is, you have like 1,000 options.
Yeah, there's a lot of options in Atlanta. Sadly, my favorite option just closed down because of COVID and all that. So
Oh dang, that's a bummer.
yeah. It was on Instagram and everyone was reposting it. Just sad.
Man, that's a bummer.
Yeah, so the first question we really wanted to ask you is, since you spend a lot of time with college students and that's pretty much your job capacity at Harris Creek, what would you say are main pitfalls in the faith for college students, and how do you try to combat that, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, one of the main pitfalls is who you hang out with. I've seen it over and over and over again. Even people who come in as a freshman and they seem pretty solid, and then they get in with just people who aren't even necessarily like bad guys or bad girls. They just like aren't pursuing Jesus. And I've watched those people join those friend groups. They've intentionally chosen those friend groups, and they're a different person their senior year than they were their freshman year, because they're not growing in their faith, because every single day they're not having conversations about Jesus. They're not being sharpened. They're not being pursued by anyone else. They're just like going with the flow of the college life, and they're doing what their roommates doing, and they're drinking what their roommates drinking, and just a failure to own your faith on your own, and you just get thrown into a friend group that isn't pursuing Jesus. You will fail every single time. You will become the average of your 5 closest friends. I don't know if that's a scientific fact. I don't know where that comes from, but I've heard that from smart people, that you will become the average of your 5 closest friends. And in college, I've just seen people make bad decisions with their friends, whether it's just to get in some cool friend group or whatever. If you're hanging out with the wrong people, you're just not going to grow in your faith. So when you go to college, you just need to like throw aside social standing, throw aside all that stuff, what people care about you, what people think about you, and just get after it on your own. Pursue Jesus. Find some people at your church. I don't care if they're you think they're nerds, you think they're too cool, you think they're whatever. If they're pursuing Jesus, those are the people that you want to spend time with, and you will grow in your love for him. So that's like the number one thing that I always tell college students. The number 2 thing is just apathy. Like working at Baylor, it's a Christian school. Everyone's a Christian at Baylor, that's not true. Everyone thinks they are, and it just turns into apathy. So it's like, man, I was raised in a Christian home, and I went to church a month ago. And you just start to go through the motions, and you just become really, really apathetic in your faith, and you lose that edge that maybe you had in your youth group in high school, where you came to know Jesus for the first time, and you just wanted to get after it, and you were praying for people, and you were sharing the gospel, and you were getting in the word. But in college, you just man, you've got that intramural game, you got that test you got to study for, you got that girl that you want to take out on a date, and all this stuff just gets in the way, and your faith just becomes kind of blah and bland, and you just get really, really apathetic. And I've watched people really, because of laziness, lose their excitement for the gospel. So those 2 things really stand out: your friend groups and apathy / laziness. That will keep you from growing your love for Jesus.
Well, that's really good. I think on Becoming Something before, y'all have said, I might be phrasing it wrong, but pick your playground or something like that, and who you hang out with. And that really
JP always says like if you're not in a good spot, you need to change your playmates, change your playground, change the people you hang out with, change the places you go, and that will really like determine where you'll be the next year, the next 2 years, the next 3 years. So yeah, you're exactly right.
You mentioned sharing the gospel, but we were tipped off by our friend Neha, who interns at Harris Creek, and she said that you're really passionate about evangelism, and we were wondering if you had anything on that note to share.
Yeah, I was talking to her about this last week, and she was asking me like what my thoughts are about evangelism, what we've done wrong, and I just think we've made it weird, and it doesn't have to be weird. Like the gospel is literally good news. And I think so often we approach it as like like I'm just going to be sharing bad news with people, and I'm afraid I'm going to offend them and whatever else. And it's like, no, you're literally giving good news to people. And when you care about something, you'll talk to them about it. For instance, right before we started this podcast, I have an obsession or an idolatry with Baylor football. I love Baylor football. My life revolves around it. And we were talking about it. I couldn't help it. I brought it up, and we were talking about how Baylor's better than Oklahoma, and I couldn't believe you admitted that. And just so grateful you said that.
That never got admitted. Nate and I were both at the 2 games Baylor played against OU last year, and we all know the outcome of those 2 games.
Yeah, and I think it was the refs. I think that's the reason why we lost. But anyway, when you care about something, it just kind of comes up. So I think when I think of evangelism, I just think of, man, you're just talking about things you care about. So whether it's close friends who don't know Jesus, or whether it's, I don't know, some random person, when you just start talking to people, Jesus should come up in conversation because you've been thinking about him, you've been talking to him, and you want other people to know about him. So I think we've made it awkward because we think it's just only bad news when it's really the best news ever. And it should just be normal because we care about it. This is like why we exist. It's to love God and serve God. And that should come up in conversation, just as Baylor football or trading stocks or whatever else you do, whatever your hobbies are, they just come up because you're thinking about it all the time. I think that's how it should be in our walk with Jesus.
I totally agree with you. I think one of the biggest changes for me, going from just kind of a lot of not really being super focused on just thinking about like my friend groups and all that kind of stuff. Once I like got into that Christian friend group and like went to church with them consistently, just knew who my group was when it came to my faith, that like made such a big difference for me, and like allowed me to have more confidence to talk about my faith. And I actually remember last semester there was one of my friends, she was asking me questions about my faith, and I felt super confident telling her like how much joy it brought me. And she was like, you know, I've never really read a Bible, but like, do you have any recommendations for which Bible I should buy? Because I kind of want to like just like look into it and see why you're so passionate about it. And like anytime that something like that happens, you just think like that boldness that it brings about you by spending so much time around people who have similar beliefs, share that faith with you, and want to grow with you. It just like changed the game completely when it comes to evangelism on a college campus.
Yeah, and I think people will be confused, like what you just said. I've heard that story 1,000 times in the best way, because whenever you're really excited about something and passionate about something, especially Jesus, there are so many college students, especially on campuses, I'm sure like Oklahoma or Georgia Tech, who aren't following Jesus or haven't really seen anyone follow Jesus. So when they meet someone who actually is, they're like, what in the world is this? Like, they care about it. Jesus has changed their life. Like, I'm kind of interested. Like, at the very least, they're going to be intrigued. So, like we're not living in Paul's day. We're not going to be whipped and brutally persecuted. The worst thing that could possibly happen to you is someone just kind of shuts you down and y'all walk away and it was a little awkward. Like, that's the worst thing that could happen. And if that's the worst thing, it's like, man, who cares?
Yeah, and I think often when we think of sharing the gospel and we get scared, it's because we think we're gonna run in automatically to that like anti-Christian, strong, angry atheist or something, and that's practically never been my experience. Everyone's always curious if you're genuine about sharing it with them.
Yeah, most people, and I live in Texas, so it's different for everyone, but most people here are like kind of Christian. So you're not going to come into that person you typically don't come into that person who's the atheist who's going to ask you about that verse in Ezekiel that you don't have the answer to, or some random thing about the dinosaurs. Like, they're just going to be like, man, I haven't really thought about that in a while. And then you just kind of get to share about Jesus, and they aren't thinking about these things. They're just going about their life and trying to be happy, trying to find a purpose. And like, they're not thinking about all these crazy random questions that like Richard Dawkins or any like leading atheist would. Like, you're more prepared than you think you are to share the gospel.
Yeah, I like what you said about earlier a couple minutes ago about how if we're changed by Jesus and our life revolves around him, then people see that. Because even on this podcast, we talk a lot about theology, but for people seeing it from the outside, it makes a big difference if it just doesn't seem theologically abstract, but it's actually changed our lives, because that's a lot more powerful and personal to them. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't care about I don't really care about some random thing that happened in India, but I would care if that random thing happened in Waco because that affected me personally. Like people care about things that happen to like you personally. Like they want to hear stories about how your life was changed. They don't want to hear about some random story necessarily from 2,000 years ago in the Middle East. Like they want to hear how God's working today. So and everything that's happening today points back to what happened 2,000 years ago with Jesus. But people really, really resonate when you can say, hey, this happened to me. This is what God did to my life.
I think a big thing too is a lot of times if we like don't feel like we have the right words, a big part about, like you said, having that Christian friend group is being plugged into a church and having the ability to be like, hey, come with my friends, let's go to church. Like you check it out, check out the worship, check out the message, check out this pastor. What would you say to someone going to church, going to college for the first time, of looking what church they might want to get plugged into or what to look for and where they may want to go to church?
Yeah, I mean, I could add this to point number one, or the question number one. If you're not going to get plugged into the church, you're not going to grow in your faith, because I know of a lot of people who they got to college their freshman year and they kind of went to church initially, but then they were like, I already know all the answers. Like I've heard that sermon before. I've been to church my whole life, and you just kind of stop going. Man, that is the worst thing you can do in your faith, because church is so important for so many reasons. One, it just reorients your life around Jesus. Every single Sunday, you're reminded of who you are and whose you are. And in college, there's so many ups and downs. There's breakups. There's bad test results. There's a friendship that's gone bad. Whatever it is, there's so many ups and downs in college. And every single Sunday morning, you need to know that you're going to be reminded about your relationship with Jesus. And then you're also going to meet a lot of people at church. Whether it's pastors, whether it's older men or older women who you need to know, whether it's people your age, you will come into a community at your church the longer you're there, who will help you grow in your love for Jesus, and you're called to be a part of the body of believers. Like you can't be a Christian and not be a part of the church. Like you are a part of the church whether you like it or not. So you might as well show up and be ready to serve, because that's what God created you to do. There is no such thing as an isolated Christian. Like we're supposed to not just go to church for ourselves, but we're supposed to go to church to help each other. I really do think it's not just like, man, I think you probably should go to church. It's no, God has called you to go to church because he's called you to be the church. So that's just what I try to tell college students is this isn't like a 4-year break you can take to go have fun. This is like the time when you really dig deep and find roots in your faith. And the only way to do that is through being involved in a local church. And it might not be Matt Chandler. It might not be JP. It might be some average preacher. But wherever it is, like you can grow there. So I know it's so hard because we have access to all these famous pastors who are amazing communicators. And that's great. Like you should listen to them Monday through Saturday, whatever else. But there's something to being in a local body of believers where they can know your sin, they can know where you're at with Jesus, and they can help you grow every single day.
For sure. So what would you say it looks like to not just be somebody who understands or agrees with the importance of going every Sunday and being reminded of what you were talking about, but needs perhaps to be more convinced that it's worthwhile to be a member at a church, or to at least engage with the church in a way that they can serve and use their spiritual gifts in the body?
Yeah. So I think the main problem that our generation comes across is like, how does this help me? How does this help me? Is this going to be the best use of my time? Am I going to enjoy this? And I'm kind of like, I don't really care. Like you don't exist for you. And one of the reasons why we are so anxious and depressed and stressed is that we're only just thinking about me. How can I be happier today? How can I get the most out of today? When we're called to lay our lives down, like Jesus said, pick up your cross and follow me. So that might mean serving in the youth ministry when you don't like kids. That might mean holding a baby when you don't like holding a baby in the nursery on Sunday morning. That might mean holding a door and you don't see the purpose to it. But it doesn't really matter. Like what matters is that you are called to serve. and to be a part of Christ's body. So that's kind of what I would tell people is like, I'm not going to convince you that this is going to be the most impactful hour of your week, even though I think it will. I'm just going to try to convince you that this is what Jesus called you to do. And if you believe that God exists, if you believe that God's word is true, and it calls you to be a part of the body of believers, it calls you to serve, to lay your life down for the sake of the gospel, then you can show up to church and you can serve. And I think you're going to look back. For instance, I served in our youth ministry for 3 years in college, and there would be times when I would leave and I was like, that was a nightmare. Like, I just was trying to corral them the whole time. We never had a deep conversation, but then I look back like year after year after year, and that consistency, I just got to see guys grow. Where I was like, man, I met them when they were a seventh grader, and now they're a ninth grader, and the amount of growth is just amazing. And it's just from showing up week after week after week. And it's the same for you, showing up at church week after week after week. You might not feel the most growth you've ever had. You might not be in tears every single Sunday, but just that consistency of showing up is going to change you. It just does. I've seen it. And it just takes a discipline of showing up week in and week out.
Yeah, for sure. I like what you said about how it might not always feel like the most impactful moment, but it is, because last year I was part of the setup team at my church in Norman. So I'd get there an hour before the service started and help set up the chairs before the service. And before you actually do it, it might feel like, why would I wake up an hour earlier just to go set up chairs? Like, that sounds boring. But as my college pastor says there, it often like sets the pace for worship and it helps you get involved. And like, that was like a really good time. So I definitely agree with what you said there.
Yeah, that's so good.
I agree with what you're saying too. But looking to our next question, we kind of had, this is more of a fun question, I guess. But if you were to write a book about any topic, what would it be and why? And then also, if you could have a co-author on this book, who would you choose?
Yeah, I love that question. So I think I would write a book about finishing well. So like, my only desire in life is to, whenever I die, whenever that is, whenever I'm, I don't know, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, whatever it is, I want to die still loving Jesus, still pursuing Jesus. Like, that is my only goal, is I want to finish this race well. And I think I would write about that, because I've seen so many pastors not finish well, whether it's an affair, whether it's ego, whether it's alcoholism, whether it's just pursuit of money, whatever it is. I've seen pastors fall. We all have, whether it's someone local or some big name pastor. I've just seen that happen so much. I just am like terrified of that for me. I don't want that for me. So I would want to write a book about how to finish well, which is hilarious because I'm 26. Like, hopefully I'm just getting started. But I would just want to take biblical principles of like, here's how you stay in love with Jesus all your life. And then if I could pick a co-author, I'd pick Tim Keller, just because I love his books. I love his wisdom. And I think it'd be cool to pair a younger believer with someone who's been at it for a long time. So I think there's something there. So if y'all have any contacts with Tim, I would love to write a book with him.
Well, we would love contact with Tim, and I think you'd be able to get it before us. But Tim Keller's book, The Reason for God, is really good.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, I've read a bunch of his books. What's crazy about his books is his like end notes or whatever, his citations is like longer than the book itself, because he's read all these other books in preparation for it. I don't know how he has time for it, but it's amazing.
It's funny because when you said Tim Keller, I was reminded that I still have a copy of one of Mike's books by Tim Keller on my shelf. I need to return eventually.
You gotta read it, bro. Come on.
So good. Tim Keller is really, really good. But if you ever write a book with Tim Keller, we would love to have you on with him.
Oh, that'd be great. I'll bring him on. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, and then another question that's kind of similar is, we know you preach sometimes on Sundays, and I actually remember listening to a sermon you preached on contentment that was really good. Do you have any preaching role models, perhaps, or role models in the faith that you like to look up to when it comes to preaching and pastoring?
Yeah, I mean, one of them's JP. Just honestly, like like I said, I was listening to him years before he came on staff here at Harris Creek, so it's been really cool to get to learn from him every single day. It's like a cheat code getting to just learn everything that he's learned in ministry. So JP's one of them. I've listened to a ton of Matt Chandler, but I also like to listen to different styles of preaching because there's different people that I've learned different things from. And I'm almost even afraid to say names because there have been seasons of my life where I've listened to people that I wouldn't necessarily recommend right now. But here are people that I have listened to. I've listened to Matt Chandler, Judah Smith, J.D. Greer. He's not a name that's as big necessarily, but
He's really good. He's president. If anyone's listening and doesn't know who that is, he's president of the Southern Baptist Convention, and he's really good.
And he's the pastor of the Summit Church, and he's just amazing. There's a season where I listen to Stephen Furtick a lot. So there's a lot of different preachers where you can learn things from, even if you're like, man, I wouldn't necessarily do it that way. Like, I love Judah Smith's storytelling, but I love like Matt Chandler's depth every single sermon, and I love the way that JP can convict people. So I would just say, like, man, listen to a lot of people. Don't try to emulate anyone because you just got to be you. But I listen to a lot of different people and just try to learn from them because God can use a bunch of different people to change your life. So those are kind of the people that I've listened to.
Yeah, I like what you said because it's easy to listen to a really good speaker, say Matt Chandler or something, and then want to talk or be just like him rather than just learn from him and still be yourself. And I feel like that's a crucial distinction.
Yeah, and I think I've gotten the ability to like learn that firsthand and working with JP and preaching alongside JP, where it's like, I'm not JP, and if I go up there and try to be JP, everyone would sniff that out and it would be embarrassing. Like, I'm just not JP. I'm made differently, and that's great. I just got to go out and do my thing and do what God has created me to do, and I just got to run my lane, and whatever that is for you, go for it. Do it with all your heart, because I think that's how God's honored when you are the best possible, most godly version of you that you are. Not you trying to be Matt Chandler, not you trying to be Judah Smith or whatever. You just serve the Lord faithfully. That's just how I've seen the most fulfillment as well, as when I'm just trying to be me.
I think that really goes a lot with like building those roots, like even in college, finding a church like you can serve in and doing that kind of thing just like helps you like find your place and like find your own style of how you want to do that. And
totally. And so many people, when they, at least this is what I'm learning, it's kind of a weird thing because we've got all these famous Instagram Christians. Like, you can be famous for being a Christian now, whether it's Sadie Robertson or Tim Tebow or all these famous pastors, Carl Lentz, like whatever it is, you can be famous for being a Christian. And I've learned, I've seen this, and I think it's true that a lot of times when I'm talking to college students who say they want to go into ministry, what they're saying is, I want to be famous. I want to have 10,000 Instagram followers. I want to have this huge following. When really, like, ministry most of the time means like you're setting up chairs, exactly what you said. Like, you're not being seen by anyone. Like, you are not famous. You're just like moving chairs and moving couches and doing the small things. You're mopping the floors, and like that's ministry. It's not necessarily posting to Instagram where there's 50,000 people. If that happens, great. If that doesn't happen, great. Just like run your lane and be who God has created you to be.
Yeah, I think the average SBC church is only like 250 members. So
Totally.
The average person going into ministry isn't ending up with, JP's following anyways.
Exactly. And that's fine. Like,
exactly.
Whether you're one of the things that JP, one of the most important lessons that he's given me was, he's like, Nate, if you're more excited to preach to 1,000 people than you are to teach one person, then it's about the numbers. It's not about using your gift.
Wow, that's really good.
Yeah, for sure. That was one thing that we were talking about just yesterday was learning a lot and like just diving into the faith in college. Just if you're not going to go into ministry, like your ministry can be in your job, like whatever that is. You can be inviting people to church. You can be telling people about your faith and all that kind of stuff in any workplace and any environment. Like we should like be looking to always be on mission.
Yeah, and that answer is not a cop out. Like, I think sometimes people feel like, well, I'm going to say I'm like going into ministry even though I'm in the business world or whatever. It's like, no, we need Christian leaders in every sphere. I don't care if you're working at McDonald's or you're the CEO of Tesla, whatever it is. Like, we need Christians everywhere. So it doesn't matter if you are in ministry in a church or if you're in ministry in working for AT&T or whatever it is. Like you are in ministry, whatever you're doing. So I think that's great.
Do you just want a Christian to be CEO of Tesla so they'll help you out? Is that
Yes.
a
I just want a free. I can't afford a Tesla. I want someone to give me a Tesla. Like that is my only hope in life. I want to drive a Tesla someday, and I'm not going to pay for it. So
You could try the trading a paperclip for a Tesla. Just trade your way up.
yes, exactly. I got to find a paperclip first. I don't even have that.
Have you seen the TED Talk with it's like how you can trade a paperclip for a house and the guy slowly works himself up or something?
Dude, I don't believe that stuff. People make that up so they can have their own TED Talk. Like, there's no way.
Yeah, basically the principle is just like you slowly trade something for something more valuable and you'd work your way up to a house. Maybe you can get that with the Tesla.
Yeah, that's amazing. JP does stuff like that. He like buys and sells random things, and I'm sure if anyone could do it, he could do it. So that's hilarious.
Well, maybe he can get you the Tesla.
Yeah, he could. Seriously.
Maybe if you write the book with Tim Keller and then sell it, maybe you can get your Tesla money that way.
Yes, exactly. Right. I just got to get with Tim first.
Yeah, that would be really good. So talking about JP and just some of the things he's taught you, we were wondering if, since on the Becoming Something podcast, and this is some background for listeners who don't listen to that, but you should if you haven't yet. JP and Nate love to have rap battles, and Nate and JP both think that they're super good, and often the winner falls on one side. I'm not gonna spoil who the winner usually is. We'll leave that for you guys to decide when you go listen to Becoming Something. But Nate, would you like to give a rap about JP for us?
Oh, of course. So just to set this up, you said Nate and JP love rap battles. JP loves rap battles. He grew up listening to rap. My like nearest thing of listening to rap growing up was Toby Mac. So I like we're in two very different ballparks, but I think I could create something. So hey yo JP, you're really, really tall. It's kind of weird. You can't even ball. Hey bro, you think you know how to preach? I don't know. I'd say that's a reach. JP, I know you've written lots of books, but it's weird because you don't know how to cook. And that's all I got. I don't know.
Well, thanks for sharing that.
Thanks.
We didn't want to challenge you to a rap battle. We thought it'd be better if we just kept the Becoming Something tradition going. Maybe
there we go.
Maybe if
yeah, I'm the winner.
We can have him rap about you. But thanks so much for sharing your rap as well.
Of course. Yeah. Thanks for letting me have the opportunity to use my spiritual gifts.
And maybe if you ever write with Tim Keller, you'll have to tell him that part of finishing well is just continually increasing your ability to rap battle over the course of your ministry.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, Tim would like love that. I'm sure he listens to a lot of rap.
We appreciate you coming on a lot. We had a really great time interviewing you and just absorbing as much knowledge as we could from you. It was really fun.
Well, hey, thanks for hanging out. I'm so encouraged by your podcast and honored to be a part of it.
Thanks so much. And listeners, if you only can pick one podcast, don't listen to ours. Go listen to Becoming Something. You'll learn lots of wisdom from Kathy, Nate, and JP. And thanks again, Nate, for coming on. And OU will always be better than Baylor.
Sick 'em Bears. Come on, baby. Go Baylor.